Welcome to the T1 Determined podcast, where we bridge the conversation of type 1 diabetes and endurance. I'm Joseph Anthony Marcello, a runner, a weightlifter, a mountaineer, and athlete. As someone living with T1D, I'm on a mission to uncover and share science-backed information that drives optimal performance and longevity. And as a storyteller, I'm here to explore and share incredible feats in T1D sports physiology. Let's tackle this together. Today, I am thrilled to chat with Keirstin Roose. Keirstin is a Division I T1D softball player, excelling at Coastal Carolina before joining the University of Georgia to pursue her master's in biomechanics. Diagnosed recently at the age of 21, Keirstin balances this academic rigor while playing a highly competitive sport and managing T1D. As the host of the Like a Girl podcast and creator of a mentorship program called the D1 Blueprint, she powerfully advocates for female athletes. As we build this podcast from the ground up, your support is crucial for our continued growth. Wherever you're listening, please share this episode and others with anyone you think might benefit. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, on Facebook at T1 Determined, and visit our website, T1Determined.net. Before we dive in, a quick but vital disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. The topics discussed and the recommendations shared by myself and our guests are personal experiences and not medical prescriptions. Use this information in a way that best suits you, and always consult your healthcare team and medical professionals before making any changes to your daily routines, management, or therapies. And now, my conversation with Keirstin Roose. Keirstin, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to dive into everything.
Such an inspirational story. Your background in just athletics and Division I softball, it really speaks to a lot of type 1s playing sports, type 1 women playing sports. You're an advocate for athleticism and women's sports in general. And I just want to start off by saying thank you for that. I've been following you for quite some time now, and it really is awesome, the content that you create. And considering that you are also a podcaster, I was very excited to have this conversation because I can't claim myself as a podcaster at this point. I'm still learning a lot, but everything you're putting out is extremely professional.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that because I too am still learning, and I feel like I have 9 episodes out and I have so much left to learn. So we're learning together. How about that?
It's a awesome journey, one that I think when I started this, I didn't think that I would be good at it, but when it comes down to the basics, it's talking about stuff that we're interested in and just comes naturally.
100%. I feel like it would be so much harder if I had to talk about something I wasn't interested in.
Well, I won't bore you with all of my mountain stories then. Today we'll talk about softball.
Mountains. I love the mountains, so I would not get bored at all.
So you play for Georgia. Are you originally from Georgia?
So I'm actually from Indiana,
Yeah.
and I played 4 years at Coastal Carolina, and I'm transferring this year to Georgia. So a little transition time for me right now.
How excited are you to join a new team, a new culture?
I am very excited, and it's going to be pretty challenging because Georgia's in the SEC, and they're like top at the top for softball. It's the best conference for it. So it's going to be a challenging but fun little time in my life. And I'm excited to push myself and really see if I can step up to that challenge. I'm
That's
excited.
awesome. Yeah. So have you been I believe you're training a lot. So if you've been ramping up the training and seasons, if you want to quickly explain when the seasons are throughout the year and then what you're doing, just simply to prep for the new season.
Yeah, so our season is in the spring. That's our main season. We play upwards of 50 games, sometimes 60 if you're good enough and you get into the postseason. So that's our real season. That's February through May. But we have a fall season too, where we come in at the normal time that school starts and it's split up between 8-hour weeks and 20-hour weeks. And there are some scrimmages in there, but the fall is kind of mellow compared to the spring. Nothing compares to the spring. But right now I'm technically in my off season, like the most off season that I'd ever be in. But I do CrossFit throughout the summer to stay in shape, and I also feel like if I can get through a CrossFit workout, I can get through any workout. So it it definitely, I don't wanna say desensitizes my ability to struggle, but like I get better at pushing through a struggle.
I was always taught that you train harder, so when it comes game time, it's not that the game is difficult, but you're ready for what lies ahead.
100%. I feel like that's diabetes in a nutshell. It's something hard that you have to deal
Right.
with, so it makes everything else seem pretty minuscule.
So during the February to May timeframe of the actual season, how many days a week are you playing games? You said 50 to 60 games with playoffs, so that equates to a couple per week.
Yeah, so on at a minimum, 3 per week,
Wow.
maximum 7, I think. Yeah. Sometimes it especially in the beginning of the season, it's tournament season, so we'll most likely play a game on Tuesday and then 2 games on Friday, 2 games on Saturday, and a game on Sunday. It gets very busy, and then come conference play, that's when everyone can kinda relax a little bit because then it's only 4 games a week instead of 7, so it it's just crazy because I mean, we're practicing and doing softball 6 days a week.
Yeah.
We're mandated an off day, but on the off day, we're usually going into the training room and getting recovery and trying to fix our bodies for the next week.
Yeah, and especially as a type 1 diabetic, it's interesting that you kinda have to be in game mode all the time, especially as you know, type 1 diabetes, something can happen yesterday that affects you today. So it's got to be challenging navigating game after game after game so quickly and not a lot of time in between to adjust. So, kind of like we were talking about before, being constantly ready, you really have to be ready while managing your diabetes.
100%, and especially on the doubleheader days, we have a half hour between games, so that's enough time to eat, but I have to kind of bolus insulin if I wanna eat in between. I have to pre-plan what I'm gonna eat. Like, it during the first game, I'm trying to plan what am I gonna eat between these games, and how much insulin do I take, and then I take a little bit of insulin and eat between the games, but then sometimes, you take too much insulin, and I would there was a time where I got low at the beginning of a game, and people are like, "Why'd you get low?" And I'm like, "It's not that I got low because I was working out, I just over bolused," and it's something that's a learning curve for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's since so you bolus and then you're continuing to move around, and I can imagine that because you're moving around, the insulin may start even if you over bolus, but also the insulin starts kicking in a lot quicker than you would be sitting at home.
Yeah, and I mean, there are so many factors with softball because our environment changes a lot, so in the beginning of our season, it's very cold. In the end of our season, it is ridiculously hot. So the effect on my blood sugar, I've learned so much with when I'm cold and I'm shivering, I burn a lot more carbs quickly and my blood sugar tanks. So that's when I had a lot more lows. And when it's hot though, my blood sugar, it stays high like the whole game. And I'm a pretty controlled person. I like to keep it between that 80 and 120, but during a game, I don't wanna get above 150 because I get really sluggish and gross feeling when I'm high, and especially when it's hot too, it's a bad combination. So it's hard to keep it balanced, but, we make it work.
And from your previous school to your new school, it's relatively the same environment, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's
it's humid
honestly
summer, cooler.
pretty horizontal move across the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you won't have luckily won't have to do much to change that from
Yeah,
but that still doesn't
thankfully, yeah.
stop it from being too cold or too warm. I'm from the Northeast, so I love I love it being cold. I'm in the middle of the winter, I'm out in a t-shirt when it's like 10 degrees
Oh
out.
gosh. See, I'm from Indiana, and that's why I moved south because I can't do the cold.
I do find, to your point, that in the winter I do need less insulin.
Mm.
And that's a interesting fact of like you because you're colder, your body is burning a little more to stay warm.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, this was funny because I didn't really know. This was freshly diagnosed. I went on a hike in Colorado, and it was pretty chilly once we got 10,000 feet, and I was doing a lot of shivering. I was also doing a lot of hiking, so I was walking all day. I didn't take a single drop of insulin, and I just kept eating carbs.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I was at the base of a waterfall. We were about to kinda scale it, and I was eating Skittles. Like, my hands were wet and shaking, and I was just popping Skittles in my mouth.
You don't know if you're shaking from the cold or from low
Yeah,
blood
right,
sugar at that point.
right.
Hiking, man, at least constant movement, and we can get into how softball differs, but for me, I find that sometimes when I'm moving for a long duration of time, it's just I don't need insulin, and I just need constant sugar.
Yeah.
Um, when I was first diagnosed, it was those horrible, like, stuff you got from CVS, the glucose tablets, and I would eat, like,
Yeah.
a pack of those and be so
Oof.
chalky, and then I learned to transition and evolve into the Cliff Energy gels, and those are a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
they're quick, and at night, complex, even on trail, I always been complex carbs for me to kind of replenish that nutrition.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny the things you learn about yourself. When were you diagnosed? How old?
So, I was 21 years old,
Mm,
2019, actually not too long ago. We just passed the 6-year anniversary, so I did not grow up with it,
well,
so still was a quick adjustment period, but it was a time in my life where I was like, "Hey, new diagnosis, nobody in my family's had this. I could either feel sorry about myself, or I have these goals to get to certain peaks and mountains across the country and the globe. And I could use this as motivation to learn more about my body and actually navigate. And I got better at managing my exercise since I've been
yeah,
diagnosed.
for sure. I feel like I've gotten better in every area of my life since being diagnosed.
Yeah, so let's definitely get into your diagnosis story. Would love to learn about when you were diagnosed, what that was kind of like for you, and the transition into your new, whether you were young, um, or not, the new life with diabetes.
Yeah, so I was similar to you. I got diagnosed when I was 20, which was I just passed my year, anniversary in March 12th of 2024. That's when I got diagnosed. I had been playing softball for 2 years already. I was going on my 3rd year and actually got diagnosed 2 weeks after shoulder surgery.
Wow.
So, it was crazy time in my life, but I think the timing was good, if any. Like, no one
Mhm.
wants to get diagnosed, but because I got shoulder surgery, I was out of softball completely. So I wasn't able to practice, wasn't able to do these things. So I had an intentional off period where I had time to figure it out. And then as my shoulder progressed, I eased into exercise. So I got to ease into exercise with learning how to manage my diabetes and learning all the different tips and tricks and how my body responds to different types of exercise slowly. The timing worked out. It was good, and it's crazy to think though when I got diagnosed, my blood sugar was like 519, 516, or something,
Yeah.
and I had been in surgery at that blood sugar. So, thinking back, I am so lucky nothing bad happened because when you go into surgery with high blood sugar, you're at such an increased risk of infection,
Mhm.
and I seriously could have had some very negative side effects, but thankfully, surgery went great, and the it was nice to be on insulin and being able to build muscle after surgery too, because I had lost 17 pounds
Wow.
before. So, I guess the symptoms that I had, it was pretty typical ones, like the drinking excessively and urinating excessively and the chapped lips,
Yeah.
I had some floaters in my vision.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't have any long-term retinopathy. My eyes are good, but some floaters, and I would get shaky at times, and the biggest one was losing 17 pounds. That was my dad was like, "You're getting skinny," and I was like, "You're just my dad. You don't know anything."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
turns out he was right. He was right. But once I got on insulin, oh my gosh, just the difference it made and being able to actually recover with a healthy body. And I came back throwing harder than before when there was a 60 to 70% chance that I would be able to throw again.
Yeah.
And those aren't great odds.
Yeah.
And
No.
so without the insulin, without getting diagnosed, oh my gosh, I can't imagine where I would be today.
So going into your surgery, were you going through these symptoms? Did you kind of know something was wrong, or was it not until after the surgery? Did they measure your blood glucose while in surgery, or was this something you found out afterwards?
No, so I had the symptoms, but
Mhm.
being an athlete, I just kind of attribute everything to being an athlete.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm dehydrated. So what? Everyone's dehydrated." I'm like, "The floaters, I don't know what excuse I gave that." Just sometimes I see blobs. But my dad has hypoglycemia problems. He doesn't have diabetes,
Okay.
but his thing was, up to 2 years leading up to my diagnosis, I was having floaters and issues like this. So it was a while. And when I had floaters once and I was sitting at my laptop in the library at school and I called my dad because we have all the same health issues, it feels like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What's wrong with me? You've been here." He's like, "Oh, your blood sugar's probably low. Have you eaten like what do you like, eat a Snickers?" Turns out the floater was because my blood sugar was ridiculously high and I ate the Snickers and I just the thought was there. He was kinda on the right
Yeah.
track.
Yeah.
Uh, but
That's
yeah,
pretty
it's
funny. Did the
crazy.
opposite effect,
Yeah.
but you don't know it at the time. And before your diagnosis, I mean, it's so tough to tell because it is like a slow ramp up to diagnosis. Were you noticing, like, a decline in your performance ability, or was it not until after your diagnosis that you realized that your performance increased?
I had gotten to a point where I felt like I had plateaued in
Mhm,
softball. I was really struggling to gain strength, and it was my freshman and sophomore year, I started off really hot my freshman year, then midway through my freshman year, just tanked in sophomore year, and I had just kind of been disappointed in my performance,
mhm.
but I don't know if that was diabetes related or a mental thing, but either way, since being on insulin, my strength, my speed, it's everything changed, and I played so much better this season. Also, I'm so much mentally stronger since going through this, and I've had 4 surgeries, so I'm no stranger to a challenge, and I think honestly, it has been kind of a blessing. Like, I'm better because of it, and I don't wish it upon anyone, but anyone that gets a diagnosis like this, it doesn't have to limit you, and like you said, it has almost taught you things, and it helps you with your performance.
I think that's such a wonderful perspective and a very important perspective. A lot of people get this diagnosis and think it's the end of the world. And you and myself were advocating that it's not. I have learned, and you're still. I mean, I've talked to people who've had this for 40 plus years, so I'm still relatively new, but you're still relatively new learning this
Yeah.
condition, and it seems like you have a hand on it right away. And just the ability to know your body. It's kinda like, yeah, we have to take insulin. Yeah, we have to manage our blood glucose, but we constantly do know what that blood glucose is. We constantly do know what we can put into our bodies that affect it. And I find at least everything that I then put into my body and exercise afterwards that like it if I put good stuff into my body, if I put good healthy foods, I feel better to then go exercise better. And then my blood sugars, the trends start to flatten out.
Yeah, I'm so curious how it has affected my I my diet, I wanna say, but also I ate relatively well beforehand. I
Mhm.
was an athlete, but I'm dating a registered dietitian, so it was a I joke with him that I picked him because of that, even though we started dating way before I got diagnosed. But it's I've really emphasized my protein intake, and I don't cut carbs at all. I Some people cut carbs when they get diagnosed. I am,
Yeah.
like, anti-cutting carbs as an athlete just
Yeah.
because I'm burning so much. I need those carbs, and also I also like enjoying food and enjoying life, so I do indulge at times, but like, on average, I eat very well, and just making sure I'm getting those whole foods and good foods to fuel my performance 'cause I I've just noticed such a difference in my strength, especially, and it's cool to see, and I wonder how being diagnosed has affected that. I bet I don't eat as many bad carbs as I did before. I
Mhm.
I'm just so much when you're conscious about something like that, I think it really makes you decide and make better decisions.
When you were first diagnosed, did you educate yourself right away, or did you come across all this new information, and because you've been an athlete up to this point, it was kind of refamiliarizing yourself with it?
So I did a lot of education. Like, I dove into all the research, all everything. I don't like not knowing things, and especially when it comes to my body. But I was familiar with diabetes and stuff like that because I'm an exercise science major and I love science. So I knew the science behind it, but I just didn't know the lifestyle behind it. I've never really known anyone who had type 1 diabetes or wasn't ever close with anyone. So I never understood how it affected everyone differently. And I learned so much in that initial period because also my parents weren't with me. I was at college. They don't know anything about diabetes, and I'm also a very independent person, and I prefer it that way. But they now it's like me teaching my parents retrospectively. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is what I do for this," and it's now it's so normal, but initially, I think you can either view it as this is all so overwhelming and I don't know what to do, so I'm just not gonna do anything, or I think I like to say I handled it like an athlete. Like, us athletes, we see problems and we get challenges introduced to us, but the next step is just trying to figure out how to solve it, and I wish diabetes was black and white because it would make my life so much easier, but it's also kinda a fun part of the challenge, if you will, loosely using fun because it doesn't always feel fun when you're in it. But it's just it is there were times where I was severely overwhelmed and I'm like, "Wow, this is a lot." I had a couple mental breakdowns here and there, but I feel like that comes with the territory, and I still have them from time to time. It still gets so overwhelming, but that's I feel like that's normal.
Yeah, no, it totally is. The overwhelmingness is a real thing because we do manage a lot of decisions a day, like per day. We make decisions that then have what that decision is affects how we feel throughout the day, physically and emotionally. And then we are apt to make more decisions based off the physical and mental state that we are in from the previous decision. It's kind of like a game. It's kind of like a sports game where just like every decision stacks on to the next, and you kind of have to make the decision based off your previous play.
Yeah, that's so real, and it's also you can't see how the decision is playing out sometimes, and then you see your blood sugar and you're like, "Oh, well, that's what happened, and now I'm feeling a type of way," and I I feel very aggravated when I get low. Like, and I'm a very mellow, even-tempered person, but something about getting low, it makes me feel like I don't have as much control of my emotions, and I hate that feeling. But it's crazy how blood sugar can affect so much about a person's day-to-day life.
Completely. It's interesting because it does affect like blood sugars in your brain. And then because it's in and out of your brain, high and low blood sugar, it affects like the way you feel, the way that you feel when you're low. It's kind of an interesting thing of like what you do actually dictates how you think.
Yeah, and I hate it and I love it. I love feeling good and I love when I'm in range, but when I'm out of range, I can tell immediately.
Blessing and a curse. And
Yeah.
before we get into talking specifically about softball and how you manage it with softball, being someone that is relatively newly diagnosed, for other people who are going through similar things, I mean, you seem to have taken this like a true athlete with a great mindset to improve yourself right away. And that's, to me, talking to people in the world, that's unique and that's special. What would you say to people who are newly diagnosed about education, athleticism, and just getting to know their bodies right away?
Yeah, I think you gotta do it for you. You
True.
can't do it for other people. Obviously, being healthy is when there are other motivators, it helps being healthy for your children or your grandchildren. But ultimately, you have to wanna be healthy for yourself and your longevity, and it's easy to just let the blood sugars kind of spiral out of control. But also, that's a short term easy. I feel like long term, it's actually gonna be quite a bit harder than if you just try to really figure out the challenge right away. So, honestly, just growing as you go, it is a big learning process, and it is really frustrating at times, but also really rewarding at times. I think anytime we can overcome a challenge that is difficult and that some people can't overcome, I feel like it must give us a hit of dopamine or serotonin because it feels good to be able to overcome something, and I think it also gives us some confidence in ourselves and our ability to handle a challenge. So, just knowing that in handling diabetes, you are better, like, equipped to handle other challenges in your life, and it puts things into perspective a lot. What used to be big problems aren't big anymore, and it's kinda nice because I don't worry, I don't sweat the little things, and I like this mindset better, but just no also giving yourself grace.
Mhm.
It's a really
Patience.
stressful time, but knowing you're not going to be perfect, that was my biggest thing. I'm a
Mhm.
perfectionist, and knowing that I'm not gonna be perfect and that's okay, just trying to stay good on average, that's the biggest part for me.
When you talk about that dopamine release, and just a quick sidetrack is I find that when I am about to go low, I over bolus, I get some sort of dopamine release because I get really excited and happy, and then I'm like, I actually acknowledge that, and I'm like, "Crap, I'm about to go low." I'm gonna be, like, hovering near food and wait for it to actually react. So it's interesting to see, but it's also from, again, the competitive mindset. If you get an achievement, you get that dopamine release, and then you're more likely to repeat what you did to get that achievement. Was there a specific instance either right after you're diagnosed or leading up to this point where you personally felt like you achieved something for yourself, whether in a game or just like actually maybe a meal or something like that that you had for the first time and managed that blood glucose well?
Yeah, I think there have been a few moments, meals specifically. I don't remember what meal it was, but I know I didn't have any nutrition labels or anything, and I correctly, like, guessed my I think it was a pizza. My boyfriend and I were having pizza for the first time at a pizza place and just doing all these, like, head calculations, and I didn't spike or get low. I stayed flat, and I was like, "I won. I won at life."
That's like winning
Um,
a game right there.
oh my gosh, I and we were like, "Yeah!" We were, like, high-fiving each other. But I think another one was when I went to the endocrinologist after getting diagnosed. So this was I think I had gone once and then, like, 2 months later, gone again. And so my A1C when I was diagnosed was 10.8, and the next time I went to the endocrinologist, I think I got it below 7, and she was like, "You are my best patient ever. Like, I wish everyone else was like you." And I'm like, "Yeah." I made it. I made it moment. I think that was rewarding.
It's like the subtle flex. I Very similar situations happen to me because I mean, unfortunately, our endocrinologists do see a lot of people with varying blood sugars, either type 2 or type 1.
Yeah.
And I love going to the endo now because my doctor and I will just sit down and then we'll just talk science. So it's
Yeah.
turned into meetings of not really discussing your blood sugar because my endo will look at the screen and be like, "All right, you're somebody who is in control. I don't need to have a lecture to you." And then he's like, "What kind of questions you got?" And I'm over here asking like, "Hey, how does creatine affect blood sugar? Is there any research on
Mm,
how caffeine affects blood sugar?" And it's kind of like, not really. Let's do. You can be the experiment for yourself, which I love, and
yeah.
then a report back.
Yeah, no, I also think being a lifelong learner is important, and I've always been that way. So,
Mhm.
in getting diagnosed, it's just learning more about myself, and it is what it is.
When you slowly eased back into softball, or just getting active with type 1 diabetes, what was that transition period like up until you got back into the highly competitive realm, the highly competitive situations?
I'd say I it was there were highs and lows. I mean, literally and metaphorically. I learned a lot because softball is kind of unique. There's an endurance component, but there's also an anaerobic component. So it's kind of aerobic throughout the day because you're constantly moving, but we have a lot of anaerobic high bursts of energy, and there are different parts of the sport that will make my blood sugar respond accordingly. So, for instance, hitting for some reason, even though it's like short bursts, I get low during hitting in practice because it's just a lot of repetition. And for me, I'm conditioned to the point where it is low and aerobic, if you will. And it's interesting because then we go to fielding and that's a lot of running, but I sometimes spike, especially if it's hot when I'm fielding. But also I will go low sometimes when it's like normal temperature. And the fact that it isn't an exact science kind of frustrated me, but just new puzzle every day. But the kind of easing into it, it wasn't terrible. I remember my first workout post-surgery, I kinda had the understanding that workouts are gonna drop my blood sugar, so I had a granola bar before it, and I was just doing a resistance training workout, and so I got pretty high. I was like, "What the heck? Like, why I'm working out?" And that was when I learned, and then I go research and, like, resistance training can actually give you an acute spike or it doesn't necessarily drop you right away, but then afterwards, that post exercise oxygen consumption, it it'll get you and just learning all the different ins and outs of different types of training. Because I also doing CrossFit, people are
Mhm.
like, "How do you not get low all the time?" And I feel like if I get low during CrossFit, it's usually because I ate before and over bolused. I
Yeah.
don't typically get low with the sport because it's so high intensity,
Mhm.
and I'll get low after for sure. But during a workout, if I get low, it's most likely because I just took a little too much insulin.
It's interesting that you have like resistance training raises blood sugar and then cardiovascular output will decrease blood sugar, but then you get to a certain point where cardiovascular output doesn't. You kind of get to that stressor level where it kind of restarts the increase in blood sugar. I find that when my heart rate is above 155 during any sort of exercise, that's when I won't see a decrease in blood sugar. I'll see an increase in blood sugar.
Yeah, I'd say right around there for me too. And also I've started running almost every day. I'm not a runner at all. And that's why people will be like, "How do you not get low during runs and stuff?" I always have gummies and glucose tabs on hand,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
rarely have to use them because even a jog gets my heart rate up there because 'cause I'm not a runner. Like, it is a task for me to run a mile. That is my long distance, and it's so funny because 'cause I'm like, This is not low intensity aerobic. This is almost anaerobic for me, man.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a challenge."
I'm interested to see if you run for a while and your body gets used to it, what then your reaction. We'll have to report back at a future date, but what then your
Yeah.
reaction would be if your body gets used to it and your heart rate isn't as high, or maybe you just keep your heart rate high and you increase speed.
Yeah. I think recently I ran a low, like easy mile, they're all hard to me, but
Yeah.
a low, easier pace mile, and I got low, and it was almost kind of like a yes moment
Yeah.
because I was like, am I getting conditioned? But I think my problem is I don't go off of paces, I go off of RPE for my miles. That was kind of my goal, is to just
Yeah.
try to challenge myself each mile, and so in doing that, my heart rate's always up there.
So transitioning now into a softball game, we talked a lot about training, talked a little bit about CrossFit. We talked about when your games were played, but into the start of the season, into the meat of the season, what I'd love if you could just walk me through what a typical game looks like for your managing blood glucose. Even if you just want to start off by saying what your therapy method is and then kind of how you manage it from there, but then go into like maybe inning by inning, or at least the checkpoints that we were just talking about. Where are they for you? And then how do you manage your glucose throughout a game?
Yeah, so with me, I wear an Omnipod and Dexcom, and so I'm constantly getting my blood sugar, constantly able to put insulin in me unless I'm not wearing the Omnipod, then I'll have my pens to inject with. But thankfully, I have an athletic trainer, and I'll have that at Georgia too. But this past season, I actually did a lot of educating for her because she had been aware of diabetes and relatively she dealt with it on a simple level, but to actually, like, fully dive into it, we were definitely learning as we went together, but she would monitor it throughout the game. So she would have my phone, so I actually have the app on my phone that connects to my insulin pump and the Dexcom too. And I just gave her my password. I'm like, "Here, you monitor this," and she checked it at least every inning. I don't know how often she checked it because I was on the field, but she would just be watching and making sure I was good. But the problem is sometimes I was out of range because I can't have my phone in my back pocket. So sometimes sometimes she wouldn't get readings if I was too far away. So that was kinda tricky because sometimes I would feel myself going low before she even knew I was going low, and also, a lot of times you can feel yourself going low before your Dexcom even tells you you're low. Um, but then there's that cold and the hot component, so at the beginning of the game, we play at night usually, so we start at 5, so it might be boiling still, and then in South Carolina, the temperature drops when the sun goes down quite a bit, and I would sometimes get low near the end of the game because also
Mhm.
it's you've been moving for a while, and but it differed every day. I never had a game that was the same in managing my diabetes, and thankfully, we we worked together really well, and she was never annoying about it, and also, I think people are afraid to annoy me, but I'm like, "You're saving my life, man. I appreciate you." Um, but it was never really the same game to game, but I did have times where she would have to bring out a Gatorade, a cup of Gatorade to the circle, and she had to call time once, and I'm like, "Okay, Lindsay," like, the big boss now. One time I had to call time and step off the field, and I actually posted a video about that, and it blew up, oh my gosh, and I didn't know how I could get hate on that, but I got hate on that too. I'm like, "How do people always find a way
But
to
it's
hate?"
like, how do I argue that I actually needed to step off it? So
Yeah,
it's not.
people are like, "Oh, it was the first inning, why did you need sugar? Like, couldn't you like, you should control that before the game," and I'm like, "You don't know, I had to take insulin in the first game and then eat between games and somehow know how much I was gonna eat." But I don't even respond to those comments
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's people just don't understand.
Unfortunately, no, they don't, and it goes back, I think, to the whole theme that we've kinda mentioned earlier, where this is a game within a game, And it's the same thing with like softball. You pitch and somebody hits, you then have to react based off what that hit is. And there's
Exactly.
so many factors going into play if they hit it, if you throw a fastball, if it's a strikeout. There's so many tiny little factors that
Yeah.
then impact the next decision. And that makes total sense of why each game, diabetes wise, would be different.
Yeah. I also feel like you just metaphorically described diabetes so well. Like, depending on what pitch you throw and when you swing at it or how you swing, the outcome will be differently. And also, sometimes it just doesn't go your way and you have no clue why. So it's wow, I might have to use that from now on.
Maybe we can add our own batting averages or
Oh my
statistics.
gosh. Oh, true.
Diabetes
Gosh.
training trading cards.
Oh, that's that's one way to do it.
I think my next question would be, when you're in these games and kind of prepping for these games, where is diabetes in your mind? I think you mentioned how you've personally felt low, but what how do you kind of combine the balance of focusing on your diabetes but focusing on the task at play, the pitch at play, even I kind of want to get more focused and not just the game, but like what's right in front of you. Trying to focus on the next play, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah, in softball, we have a saying that's one pitch at a time, and I think I've truly, finally started to actually do that and getting mature in the game and just having played in college for 4 years. If I were a freshman and got diagnosed, it would probably be so much worse because I was just, less mature than I am now, and I've grown so much because of it. But I don't typically think so much about it in a game, when I'm low or in between innings and having to run out with I used to eat Skittles all the time, then I'm like, "Why am I doing this? These are so hard to chew." But I would run out with Skittles in my mouth, and that would be kind of annoying, but also I'm a very intellectual, cognitive person, and to a fault, I will overthink things, and softball is such a mental game to where I need to think less. So if anything, it might be a good distraction. Um, and I honestly this year is just I've seen a tenfold in my mental game, and I honestly the mentally the diabetes didn't affect me as much as it would have if it was a freshman or sophomore. Although there were definitely overwhelming times, and there was one practice where I had started to feel like I was getting low, and practices are the hard part because I'm really far away from my phone. Like, I don't have my phone with me, um, and our trainer would have it in practice sometimes, but we're sometimes at the batting cages. It's really hard to stay connected to my Dexcom, and so I was in left field, and I felt like I was getting low, and then I was trying to wait for the drill to end because we needed to have 3 people for the drill, and so I was, like, trying to push through. I knew the drill was about to end, but then I started to feel really low. Finally, the drill ended, and I run in and get a I don't even know what I was eating, but it was something that wasn't very easy to eat, and then my coach, she was so joking and didn't mean any harm by it at all, and she was like, "What do you think this is, snack break?" And I'm just when I'm low, I can get a little emotional. I'm like, "I I didn't like, do you want me to die? I don't know." And then I'm, like, trying to shove it down because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, she wants me out there really quick."
Yeah.
And then I start kind of like well, I was choking up, I was about to cry, and so, when you choke up, your throat starts to close up a little bit. I'm also out of breath, also trying to swallow something, and then
Yeah.
I'm, like, about to hyperventilate, and then I just remember being in left field crying, and the people in line with me, they had no clue what was going on. They were like, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "I don't wanna talk about it," and I'm, like, so not a dramatic person, but being low makes me feel so dramatic, and I hate it, but yeah, we all have those moments, so
And thank you for opening up about that because I think it's extremely important to share those moments. I also think it's a
yeah,
miracle that you didn't pass out when the oxygen, you probably got no oxygen, you got no sugar on energy because you're going low and a lot going on at once.
yeah. There
You
have
look,
been a couple times where I've almost hyperventilated when I was low because I still try to work out,
Mhm.
and one time my coach our assistant coach, she had my phone in her hand, she's like I was like, "I think I'm low," but then I started eating Skittles, and then the Skittles were and then I'm breathing really heavy, and I start hyperventilating, and we had to go inside, and there was another time I was working out with my boyfriend doing a CrossFit workout. It was a mile med ball run to start, and then a ridiculous workout in between, and then a mile med ball run to finish, and it was like a 14-pound med ball that you
yeah.
had to just carry above your arm. I got halfway through the 2nd mile, and I was also low. I got low in the middle of the workout, and just remember stopping at the stop sign to turn around and, like, I was, like, trying to breathe, and it oh my gosh, I don't know why I hyperventilate when I'm low, but I think it's because I get really emotional, and I feel like I'm gonna cry, especially
Mhm.
during a really hard workout. I'm like, "Why am I here?" Yeah, it's
No, it
yeah.
totally makes sense, especially if I mean, you've probably experienced it a lot since you've been diagnosed, but before your diagnosis, your body was at such a high interval of blood sugar that it hasn't really experienced a true low. So, I mean, I remember, at least for me, when I first got diagnosed within the first 2 years, there was emotional lows where I was actually crying, and you don't know why. It's
Yeah,
one of the things you can't explain why. You feel shaky, you feel horrible, and then there's tears coming from you.
yeah. I'm like, "I swear I'm not weak-minded."
Thank you
Is
very
it
much for sharing that. I think it's important to talk about the good and the bad about type 1 diabetes because we look at and we talk to highly competitive people, and it's nice to know that it is difficult, it is hard, and you can manage and push through it, those difficult and hard obstacles.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we can see someone and think that, "Oh, you're handling it so well, and you've got this all down to a T," but really there are a lot of struggles, so it's nice to see someone who you think is handling it great, knowing that, "Okay, they also struggle, this is normal for me to struggle," 'cause that's a big part of it, is it is a struggle, but it makes it even more rewarding when you kinda get it right.
They call it the invisible disease or condition for a reason, and I mean, when somebody's seeing us at a low, at a point where perhaps we're crying, they not to their fault, but a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes of what led up to that moment. I have so kind of a two-part question here. You were talking about how your mind and decision making tenfolded since you've been diagnosed. Do you think that is a tribute to the more calculations you've had to make with diabetes? Now you can make more calculations with softball. And then part two of that question is because of this, while you're playing, do you think diabetes has kind of the management of it gone into your subconscious because of the constant calculation? And then you don't have to focus on it as much during the game because you're actually subconsciously focusing on it.
Yeah, so I think diabetes has helped me get better in my mental game just because it's another hard thing, and I'm a firm believer in doing hard things and conquering hard things because it gives you confidence and it it gives you a mental callus, and I think that has really pushed me through softball and hard workouts and diabetes and surgeries and just I love to fill my schedule with anything and everything, so constantly being busy, but I love it. I love trying to figure out challenges, and I think that is really what made my mental state better is just conquering hard things. It's wild, but when someone stays in a little bubble and they don't try to push themselves and they don't do challenging things, it is actually worse for them because it's like they'll have very smooth hands, no calluses, but mental callus. And then for softball, I do think it has semi become subconscious, but because I deal with it so often, as soon as something happens, that's my first thought is, "Oh, is it the diabetes?" It's like, I can't focus right now. "Oh, my blood sugar is at 200." But also, there's another component of softball that has been challenging is pod placement and Dexcom placement because I both slide on the back of my legs and dive. So the front of my legs and my stomach will hit the ground. So it limits the places I can put them. So not only is it a calculation of insulin, but it's planning 10 days ahead to try to figure out where can I put this that it's not gonna get ripped off. Also, I like to put it on the back of my arms a lot, and I especially with softball, that's been the best place for it because it doesn't ever hit the ground right there, and because the insulin, it really only absorbs well in my stomach and my arms, so I'm limited in that. I tried to put it on my legs, but I, like it's almost like I didn't inject any insulin at all.
Yeah.
Um, so then I don't wanna put my Dexcom anywhere that my Omnipod could be, so I 'cause I you can your blood sugar works everywhere. Um, and so then I limit that to, like, anywhere I've honestly tried all different places, and some people I put it on my chest sometimes, and they're like, "Does that hurt?" Like, I'm like, "No, honestly, it's great and it's out of the way." So that was my favorite spot for it for softball, but trying to plan ahead, and then if I did have it on my right arm, when I throw, the follow through, like, the ricochet, I've thrown an Omnipod off before, even when it's on the back of my arm, because it's just you don't realize the the end of your throw just really puts a lot of torque on your arm. And so then I have to strap it up, and so if I have it on my left arm, then it's great, but it's also facing the pitcher, so what if they hit it? But I haven't had it hit before, and if anything, I feel like might honestly be better if it hit that than me, 'cause I feel like it wouldn't hurt as much 'cause it's a little piece of armor, unless it
Yeah,
cracks.
it probably it'd probably deflect it. Worst case,
Yeah,
I don't think it would give you more insulin, I think it would just be wasted insulin if it broke.
yeah, probably just break, but yeah, so there's that decision making part of it too, but it's yeah, all a challenge.
It is all these fine details, but it's details that you don't know exist until you come across them. And then how much do you like, how many times do you notice something like the placement, and then you're just like, "All right, cool. I learned this. Now add it to the stack of things that I know. Imma do this new routine and then continue on until I learn the next one."
Yeah, I think it's just like that. It becomes a routine.
Yeah.
It's we're constantly stacking information, and I I love routines, so that helps me. But it is also a lot of information because when you feel like stack a lot of information, sometimes what you learned first, you forget about it. So sometimes going through things twice happens, but I feel like a lot of the time I learn from things once, such as pod placements and how much insulin to use. It's but it is a learning process, and I think it's yeah, it sucks sometimes, but
How important do you think it is to talk about this? And I'd love for this section to start kinda being like a shout out for what you do beyond the field. You have a podcast that's not just about type 1 diabetes and sports, about women in sports in general. Um, how important do you think just kind of having these conversations like you and I are having today, but also being on a presence on the internet and social media and presence to other type 1 diabetics and other women type 1 diabetics who are going through similar situations? What is it what do you love about being an advocate? And then what are you learning about being an advocate? And how is that helping you just all encompassing as a person?
yeah, I think with both type 1 diabetes and just being a female athlete and sharing my experiences there, it is so helpful for younger athletes because I think of what I wish I would have had when I was a younger athlete or even when I got diagnosed, just getting that information quicker would have been easier. But I mean, I walked so people can run if they listen to my podcast, and just having gone through challenges like that, I hope that people don't have to go through all of the same challenges that I've gone through. They can learn vicariously through me. And I mean, I have 3 younger sisters, so it's always my goal to empower young women and just encourage them to take up space and just be confident because we can do anything that we put our mind to. And same thing with type 1 diabetics. I also do a mentorship where I mentor young athletes, both regular athletes and type 1 diabetic athletes. And it's cool to hear everyone's story. And it's also cool to teach people because it's so rewarding when someone messages me and was like, this thing you told me, this really helped me and I feel so much better or I performed better because of it. That is like the most rewarding thing ever is knowing I helped someone. And so if I could starting the podcast, I was like, if I help one person, great. Like I've done a good job. But just seeing people reach out, it also is fuel to keep going because I'm clearly helping people, and especially being a young female athlete, it's there's no blueprint for it, and everyone's so different, but we do go through a lot of the same struggles, and just knowing that you're not alone, you're not the only one who's gone through this. I think it really does help an athlete step into their confidence and understand their self-worth and just know that, successful people have also struggled with this. So I can too be successful.
I think that was amazingly said. And again, I just want to reiterate how unique a perspective this is. And I want to personally thank you because you are affecting people out there. And I mean, you're doing such a great job that your podcast is of a caliber that I aspire this podcast to be. So please know that I do look up to the content that you create. And I can tell you that it's motivating people. I say this all the time on this podcast. If we have affected one person, one listener today, then we did our job. I don't think any of us are after fame and wealth for doing this. We're doing this because we love this. We're doing this because we love sports and being active in general. And we want to bring meaning to our lives, but we also want to help. I think we live in a unique time period where we can get messages across to a lot of people fairly easily, and we can also have conversations from Georgia to Boston, and it's phenomenal. And again, I just want to overall bring back to my point, just thank you for the work that you are doing.
No, and thank you for the work you're doing too. This podcast is special, and when I heard that a type 1 diabetic podcast wanted to shoot together, I was immediately like, yes, this is exactly what I want my reach to be and exactly why we do it. Like you said, like we're not doing it for the money. I don't think anyone who podcasts except for, the big names are doing it for the money. It's pure passion, and it's it's better that way too. I love getting all the information out there and just helping people.
Agreed, and thank you for that. How, if people want to get in touch with you, if they have questions, but also if they want to listen to your podcast, where can they reach out, and then how can they listen as well?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. My DMs are always open. Keirstin.Roose. The spelling of my name will be in the show notes, I'm sure, because
Yep, we'll
that's
provide
not
all
an
links
easy one
and
to spell.
everything.
And then TikTok, Keirstin.Roose as well. That's where I do a lot of my content. But I also have a podcast page. It's like a girl underscore pod. And like a girl is the name of my podcast. So that's where you'll get a lot of the podcast clips. But yeah, a lot of ways to reach me. And all my DMs are open. I also look through all of the requests. I have gotten hundreds of messages from young athletes, and I respond to every single one of them.
It's wonderful, and that's amazing, and that is important to do. So it's nice to know that people reach out to you and ask you questions, or at least empathize with you. I think it's great that you reach back out to them.
I too was in their shoes, so I would want a response in return.
And I think the final kind of question or topic that I'd like to ask you is something similar to that. For somebody who is in your shoes, you were the shoes that you were in a little over a year ago, newly diagnosed, but it's also an athlete, or maybe not even an athlete, knowing what you know now, and then also being excited about the ability to learn more because as you discussed today, you're not done learning. What would you say to that person who is at that starting point and kind of readjusting their life after being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes?
I would just say that hard times, they are really sucky when you're in them, but almost every hard time in your life can it can be turned into a learning lesson, and you can always take something away from it. I always like to say we don't learn from constantly being perfect. We learn from making mistakes, and we learn from having hard things happen to us. So it's being a lifelong learner, just always being curious and willing to learn about yourself, and understanding that you'll learn more about yourself than you ever thought you would, but it's so beneficial. And honestly, it's a cheat code, you know? It's I know a lot more about my body than a lot of my teammates, and mentally and also physically, I think I'm at an advantage because of it.
Again, just a wonderful point of view. I think a lot of people can learn from and a lot of people can take. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck throughout the rest of your summer CrossFit and throughout your fall season and then the intense spring season and with Georgia. And again, I just want to thank you for talking with me today.
Yeah, no, I thank you for having me on. This has been a pleasure, and I wish you luck with the podcast too. It's awesome
Thank
what
you.
you're doing.
One day we will be big enough to where you and I can sit down and have another podcast in person, and
Yeah.
invite you on at a future date. We're starting to do in-person ones. But when we get to that point that we can do everybody in person, I would love to have you back on.
Yeah. No, I'd love that too.
Awesome. Thank you, Keirstin.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you again, Keirstin, for sharing your insightful experiences. Your commitment to balancing elite softball with T1D proves that managing a chronic condition is just another challenge to be solved, just like managing a game pitch by pitch. Thank you for sharing your athlete's mindset with us. You can follow Keirstin on her socials at Keirstin.Roose, Roose. You can listen to her Like a Girl podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and follow the pod socials at likeagirl_pod. Links are in the show notes. For all our content, please visit T1Determined.net. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, and Facebook at T1Determined. Until next time, keep pushing your limits. I hope this helps. Stay strong, stay determined. T1 Determined.